Good evening, Belize, our regional colleagues, and our comrades worldwide, and welcome to the University of the West Indies Open Campus third public lecture. Now, this lecture is surrounding the Garifuna culture and its implications on the church in Belize. Now, before we go any further, I would like to regard all of those who are here tonight and establishing protocol. I would like to highlight Dr. Charmaine Sanders, the head of the UWI Open Campus Belize, Senator Bishop A. Moses Bengoche, Ms. Sapna Bodrani, the president of the National Institute of Culture and History, Bishop Lawrence Nicasio, Bishop Philip Wright, Bishop Everell Galbraith, and Bishop Christine Gooden Benguche. Also to take note of is that this lecture is in collaboration with the Methodist Diocese and the National Institute of Culture and History. And with your series of events for tonight, I am your Directress of Ceremony, Miss Ronisha Gentle. Now we will start off with the national anthem, both in English and in Garifuna.
Land of the free, by the carriage sea, our manhood we pledge to thy liberty. No tyrants here linger, despots must flee this tranquil haven of democracy. The blood of our sires, which hollowed the sun, brought freedom from slavery, oppression's run. By the might of truth and the grace of God, no longer shall we be heroes of wood. Arise, ye sons of the Baymen's clan, put on your armor, clear the land, drive back the tyrants, let despots flee. Land of the free, by the Caribbean Sea. Nature has blessed thee with wealth untold, o'er mountains and valleys where prairies roll. Our fathers, the Baymen, valiant and bold, drove back the invaders, this heritage hold. From Mount Rio Hondo to Old Sassoon, through Coral Island over Blue Lagoon, keep watch with the angels, the stars and moon, for freedom comes tomorrow soon. Arise, ye sons of the Baymen's land, put on your armor, clear the land, drive back the tyrants, let despots flee. Land of the free, by the Caribbean Sea.
And now we will proceed with the national anthem in Garifuna.
Hagira libre tia la rubaran, dua muti were lupa salvaru, mere de rubaya, furuda tia ya hey balwe wagira le dara gila bay, seti ha kawayuna luhur memu, webe meri duwe adamuruni, laulu bafu iri cebu wabar mamuli rududu ya diwaya sara umahara keiwayu nagu gerak Tifaradi uo wa uburi wa mualeri sipe ayabi wa yunagu dere bubutia eba mutia anania mayawo Tumadia Rio Hando Tagalos Nasmun Lausua Bodelu Malagulu Fegela Wabuha Madilu Lumasien Chulu Hadalu Miurago Sara Umahara Iwayu Nago
Now we know the usual decorum for national anthems is to put your hands on your side or on your chest. But can anyone agree with me that whenever we hear the anthem being played in Garifuna, you just need to sway? All right, there we go. Everyone is in agreement. Now moving on with the agenda, I now have the prayer being done by Bishop Lawrence Nicasio.
We place ourselves in the presence of God. Fregiwama, let us pray. Bungi waguchi inebela biri wong. Bugi asunti gabafu bay. Lediga nikata wagie ahe uaba wama lumba dunde hawa. Nikata wagie ahe uala ibagari wada. Watu waluagu biri. Tuagu ge bafrugu gumflit. Lu wama ba lida orale. Lu wama ba lida dungo le. Lu buidu boy la saliru. Sung warense hang guyong le. Fregi tu aluagu bisbo Moises benguche. Wawagu sungu be. Lu kagamba di wama. Lu sung baresagu garifuna. Chulula lere wayanu hanguyong le tido wanigi. Luma tido waba garifuna. Waduga sung fregi le lida liri biro Jesu Cristo suntiga bafu itarala. Amen.
Thank you so much for that prayer, Bishop Nicasio. Now moving forward with the welcome address, we have Dr. Saunders, Dr. Charmaine Saunders, the head of the UWI Open Campus Belize, and everyone, you can be seated.
It is indeed a great occasion to be able to meet with colleagues at these critical times to discuss such an important topic within our society. I am Charmaine Saunders, head of UWI Open Campus Belize, and I welcome each and every one of you to this evening's public lecture, the third in our public lecture series entitled The Garifuna Culture and Its Implications on the Church in Belize, being ably delivered by my distinguished friend and colleague, Senator Bishop A. Moses Benguche. Our Belizean culture has been so enriched with 8 district 8 distinct ethnic groups that each wholesomely contribute to their own rich history, language, and culture to our rich diversity and history. The Garifuna people are a thriving population in our country, but have so successfully preserved and share much of their cultural heritage. Today, we get to engage in the sharing of the Garifuna culture and its impact on the church in Belize. I recall last year during our trip to Grenada, I had the opportunity, wasn't last year, 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to discuss the possibility of UWI collaborating with Senator Bishop Bengoshe and the Methodist Diocese to deliver a public lecture on the work, his work, and the writing he continues to do. He was so very excited about this request and the opportunity and quickly agreed to participate. Little did he know what he was getting himself into. We spent a lot of time planning and detailing exactly how this would materialize. Then along came COVID and we had a setback. But today we have rebounded, and after so much delay, no fault of our own, we are able to present this masterpiece. Even though we had greater plans for the lecture in terms of location and audience, we are still very excited about this event because we are able to simulcast and live stream this event. We are live stream, allowing people all over the Caribbean, the US, and even the world, and here in Belize to join us today from the comforts of their homes. I want to encourage you to listen. And though the question and answer series is probably only 20 minutes, please share with us in our chat your questions. We also encourage you to forward any questions you may have to UWI at belize@open.uwi.edu, and we will get Senator Bishop Bengoshe's response immediately to you. So welcome, each and every one of you, and enjoy this lecture. I thank you.
And continuing with the welcome remarks, we have Ms. Sapna Budrani, President of the National Institute of Culture and History.
Good night. In welcoming you here today to this lecture by Senator Bishop A. Moses Bengoshe, to whom we extend a warm and personal word of appreciation. It gives me great pleasure that we're looking at this aspect of Garifuna heritage. Welcome to all who have or are providing remarks to this evening, and others in the audience and our live audience. While traditional Garifuna spirituality extends beyond recorded Western history, there are documented reports of Garifuna encounters with priests in St. Vincent, Dominica, and Guadalupe. Most notably, Father Raymond Brenton in the 1600s, who studied the Kalinagu language, which Walagante, Marcella Lewis, and a French linguistic, Sybil Depure, reviewed in 2001. We are here this evening, though, to hear Senator Bengoshe's lecture on the Garifuna culture and its implication on the church in Belize. Considering this long history and the number of churches that currently operate in Belize, there's a lot to learn. Perhaps his lecture will inspire future research or analysis. We at the National Institute of Culture and History always look forward to new insights on Belizean ethnic group and to reading emerging research. The Institute for Social and Cultural Research is a niche department responsible for implementing the 2003 Convention, UNESCO Convention for Safeguarding Intangible Cultural Heritage, also known as ICH, in Belize. Intangible cultural heritage refers to an array of traditions, performing arts, social practices, rituals, and festive events and skills. This includes safeguarding traditions such as finados, Ureme, Christmas Bram, to name a few. To document Ureme and other Garifuna ICH, we have partnered with Garifuna cultural, spiritual, and community leaders throughout Belize and plan to continue. Welcome to this learning opportunity. Thank you.
And thank you once again to Dr. Saunders and to Ms. Bodrani for the welcoming addresses. Now, special remarks will be coming from Mr. Sebastian Cayetano. Now, Mr. Cayetano is actually representing Luba Garifuna Cultural Museum. Mr. Cayetano?
Mabaga, bait going home somewhat, bait going on Sumba listen. Good night, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, Belizeans in Radioland and TV. It gives me great pleasure to give special remarks at this great presentation on Garinoga and the Church in Belize. The presentation by His Lordship and Senator Honorable Alvin Moses Bengoche, our third Garifuna Bishop in Belize, will be a great eye-opener. It will be highly informative, at times provoking and provocative. It will also speak truth to power. Thanks to the presence of the Roman Catholic Bishop, Bishop Lawrence Nicasio, who took the Garifuna people to the center and onto the altar of the Roman Catholic Church. Before that, of course, Bishop O.P. Martin, our first Roman Catholic Bishop of Belize, Garifuna, opened the church and its doors and allowed us inside the church. His Lordship, Bishop Senator Alvin Moses Bengoche, has taken up the mantle and is stepping up to the task. Congratulations, Bishop. Congratulations also goes to our sister, our Garifuna sister, and Senator, Honorable Erica John. We congratulate her for being our second Garifuna senator in this present government, plus our two bishops. It is not a thing that we take lightly. We are serious about it. But we look forward to the confirmation of our sister, Acting Chief Justice Michelle Arana, to the post. There's a big delay. We don't know why. We think she's highly qualified, but others may think otherwise. In Garifuna, we say, Aubun Amurnu, and this means I am for you, you are for me, I for you, and you for me. It's a spiritual well-being of reciprocity. Bungi waba wagelari, God before us, and we follow him. Muchas gracias. Thank you. Dios botik, banjosh, sereme.
Thank you, Mr. Cayetano, for those special remarks. And now we would like to call on Ms. Agnes Morris for the introduction of our lecturer for tonight, Senator Bishop A. Moses Bengoche. Now, everyone, I can attest to Senator Bengoche's excitement for this event tonight. I had the opportunity to speak with him beforehand, and he was very candid and open and passionate about this lecture. So without further ado, Ms. Morris.
Good night, everyone. Good night. I am very much aware that you want to know who is this Alvin Moses Benguche. So I'll tell you a little bit about his history. Moses was born to Clive and Lydia Benguche in the town of Stan Creek, Belize, Central America. Moses, Brother Mo, as we call him, a part of our family, is the youngest of the 8 children. He grew up with our aunt Sylvia and his eldest sister Marie after the death of both his mother and subsequently his father. We all grew up, myself and him grew up in Stan Creek Town, now known as Dangriga. During this time, we were not connected as family, but after a few years, we got close to each other and we shared that love that we had, the bond that we had as our family, even though we had lose our parents. He went his way and others, we all separated, but we were still there. So Moses remained as our brother, our youngest brother. Moses is married to Bishop Christine Goden Benguche in Jamaica, and they produced 3 children. We have Ruth Ann, Ricardo, and Riala. He spent quite a number of his years out of Belize, studying, learning about culture, and also he shared his interest in the culture. And that's the reason why he's here tonight. And so as we sit back and listen to Moses and what he has to offer us, I now present him to do his part. Thank you.
Now, once again, I officially call on Senator Bishop A. Moses Bengoche to deliver his lecture for you tonight.
Seremi. Madam Program Director, Dr. Saunders, Ms. Sapna Budrani, Mrs. Eleanor Gillett, Mrs. Cleland, Mrs. Gillett being the Dean of the Wesley Junior College, and Mrs. Cleland, the principal, the acting principal of the Wesley College. Bishop Lawrence Nicasio, Mr. Caetano, other distinguished ladies and gentlemen who have been invited to share both online and your presence this evening. As the program director pointed out, there is a level of excitement in what I have to share this evening tonight. I want to, perhaps maybe at the beginning, I do not want to take anything away from Mrs. Eleanor Gillett, who will express thanks at the end, but perhaps it is important for me to, at the beginning of this presentation, at the beginning of this lecture, be able to recognize some persons who I thought over the last few months would have contributed to tonight's presentation. Of course, as Dr. Saunders has pointed out, the University of the West Indies herself taking the lead role in tonight's presentation, and also Mr. Ian Carter, with whom I would have communicated with over all these hours and days and I think weeks. As Dr. Saunders pointed out some 2 years ago, as we sat in meetings on the island of Grenada, and as we were reminiscing and sharing information with each other, and as we crossed paths, we thought that perhaps it was important for me to be able to share in this fashion, as I expressed to her my passion and some of the work that I had already started, some of the written work that I had already started, and I had put down for a number of reasons that it was time to start the research again and to be able to at least begin to think of publishing. Of course, COVID-19 came along, and that in itself put a dent to what we were doing. Along the line, of course, I would have had, in preparation for tonight, I would have had conversations with Mr. Rene Voineva. A part of his team is with us, and shared with him a part of what would take place. I'm certain that in time to come, they will receive the feed that we are sharing tonight. They will receive the feed, and we hope in time to come, the rest of the public will be able to share. To the Methodist institutions, Wesley Junior College and Wesley College, for their assistance and for their partnership, I want to also express gratitude for the partnership that we continue to have. And it is important for me to be able to share, before I go into the presentation, my gratitude to people like Mr. Sebastian Caetano, who is here tonight, and Mr. Roy Caetano, Canon Jerris Valentine, Mrs. Myrtle Palacio, Dr. Joseph Palacio. These are some of the persons, believe it or not, who over not only the last few months, but over the last few years, in the case of Dr. Palacio, from since 1990, since I started research, he has been helping me with some material. And so I want to express my gratitude to him for the years we have been working together, I would say, as a team. And as a part of this team, also my research personnel, it would be remiss if I do not call your names, because I know that you're online tonight and you're watching me. My daughter, Rayla, who also was a part of packaging my material and ensuring that the grammar is right and that everything is in place. And so thank you, Rayla, to my wife, Christine, and to my son, Ricardo, who also was a part of the team in the little research he did on my behalf. And to all those who have hailed me and supported me over the years, to those in Jamaica and some people in the United States of America, and typically those of us who are concerned about culture. It is important to be able to express my delight and my joy And I also want to add to this because I would not have handed these names to Ms. Juliet, but to the immediate past Speaker of Belize House of Representatives, Mrs. Laura Tucker Longsworth, for the gift of the 2 books, which also formed a part of my research, believe it or not. She was gracious in giving me another book, the first that I think I lost, Bekalam, and Time and the River, authored by her sister, the late Z. Edgel. I want to express my thanks. And as we prepare, and as I prepare this evening to go into this lecture presentation, I did promise that I will be watching the time. And I am very mindful. I'm very mindful of that. And so I will ensure that I conclude within a certain time, but it is important to be able to share and not hurry through this important material because enough research has been done. In fact, I shared earlier, as I said, with she who's directing the program, my level of excitement, and I did share with her, I wonder if I over-prepared. But she assured me that you could never over-prepare. And so with that assurance, I will begin this evening's, tonight's lecture. I thought that in sharing this evening, in sharing tonight, it was important because what I have found in Belize over the years and what I have found coming back home is the lack of knowledge of present-day Belize as to the role of the Garifuna culture as it should be addressed in modern-day Belize. And this affords me the opportunity to be able to point out some glaring ineptitudes, chief amongst them the display of the church and its inability to be able to express the Garifuna culture enough. The church, to a large extent, has been suspicious of some things done within the Garifuna culture. And you hear in some circles of the church superstitions concerning some of the things that is done within the Garifuna culture. I did promise tonight that I'm sorry I will not be able to hold back on some things because it is important to be able to share these things so that perhaps it will form the level of discussion that should have taken place a long time ago. And as I indicated, chief amongst them, I would like to point out the understanding of ancestral veneration. Ancestral veneration. And veneration is not simply an imposition of a belief adopted by the Garifunas from a Western thought or Western mythology. Veneration is more than the pagan superstition which is attributed to the Garifuna culture by the church and society at large. It is a church that must play a key role in educating the populace. And I believe that sincerely, that it must be the church that must form and must promote and must educate persons. Years ago, one of the Belize's foremost authors wrote her book, Bekalam. In one section of the book, she alluded to the general superstition people had of the Garifuna, the Garinago, in the southern part of Belize. and in particular Stan Creek. And this is what the Agil wrote in Bekalam, chapter 11 and page 67, and also page 68. Miss Bengushe says, and Becca interrupted, Miss Bengushe says, wiping the scales off her cheek with her frock tail. Her aunt said, shut your mouth, Becca. Granny Ivy also said, shut your mouth, Becca. But Gran, Miss says, but Gran, Miss says, I will close spin your mouth as well as flatten your nose if you don't shut up. Becca, but Miss says, all I hear from you is Miss, keep quiet for a little bit of change. Flinging the knife down on the floor, Becca shouted, when I grow up, I'm going to marry a Carib. And a slap across her face came with such swiftness and strength that Becca staggered back against the stove. It's an expression of perhaps how people saw Garifuna people, and to some extent is still seen. Maria Garifuna, Maria Carib, it was unheard of for some people. And so, of course, Becca, being the young, rebellious individual, decided to blurt this out to both her aunt and her grandmother. And it was not met with the best of expression. Of course, to a large extent, things have changed a little, and I'm happy for that. From what I have seen, there has been some change, but I still believe that there is enough superstition. I still believe that there are enough walls that are still being placed that we need to break down insofar as culture is concerned. And it is my desire to address the anomaly and ignorance in this presentation. And it is my wish that by speaking up and out, I would have captured the audience who can help spread the desired result and sharing that will assist in minimizing misinformation of culture, religious practices of the Garifuna in Belize. What is the church's mission to the people of Belize in presenting the Garifuna culture? What is the church's, or what should be the church's mission? I have chosen to borrow from one of the Caribbean leading theologians on the subject of anthropological work. Dr. George MacDonald Mulroney, in his book, Theology in Folk Culture, The Theological Significance of Haitian Folk Religion, Frankfurt, Peter Lang, 1984, makes this point. And I quote, the church is the body of Christ. If it is true to that title, then it must exist for itself. It must serve the community in which it is placed. Christ described himself as he did not come to be served, but to serve. His presence is all real when the church, and the church's presence is all real when the church addresses itself to the community, to things like hunger, thirst, loneliness, nakedness, sickness, political injustice, close quote. And that is what George Mulroney has shared. I continue by saying, for the church to serve most effectively, it must know the community inside out. It is then seen and understood as the community, as the community's representative. the Belizean culture, the Belizean Garifuna community, and the church. I would like to share a little bit about that. Perhaps where we are now. And the breakdown of those who consider themselves Christians within the Garifuna population is broken down in the following statistics. I still have to do some more work on the statistics. You will forgive me, but for the presentation tonight, I present these figures. The Roman Catholic Church, 51.2%. The Methodist, 18%, followed by the Anglican and Seventh-day Adventists, 17%, and the scattered remainder amongst the Baptist, the Jehovah's Witness, and evangelicals. That is in Belize. Now, what is interesting is that when you travel to countries like Honduras, you will find something different, because in my travels to Honduras, you will find out that in the Garifuna population, they mostly go to the evangelical churches in Honduras. In St. Vincent, to a large extent, the Garifuna are chiefly Methodist, and I will say a little bit more about this as I proceed. The church, and by what I mean the church, it is the ecumenical church, and I need to emphasize that. It is the ecumenical church, has by effect understood or not understood its role in the life of the Garifuna population. And the church has seen itself only in quote unquote Christianizing the Garifuna population. I need to say a little bit more about that. Pointed out in a book written by Charles M. Woods Jr., Alexander Bennett, and Sylvana Oates, Years of Grace, the History of Roman Catholic Evangelization in Belize. It is said that the reputation of the Black Caribs, the Garifuna, is described in this way: good and sturdy warriors who made themselves sought after and were feared. Their exposure to Roman Catholicism started along the coast of Mullins River Village. Interestingly, the Methodists preceded the Romans, but by 1838, a Roman Catholic priest, Fray Rubio, ministered to the Garifuna population in that area. That ministry, by extension, was later moved to Stand Creek. The Methodists up to today, however, was left to continue the mission, especially in the area of education. The Methodist remains a chief presence in that village today, though not necessarily to the Garifuna. In the book, the centenary number of the Methodist Record, the Wesleyan Methodist Magazine of the Honduras District, in March 1828, the Reverend William Wedlock came with his wife and established the work in Stand Creek, Mullins River, and places on the Belize and Sibun rivers. He reported 100 scholars in the Sunday school and crowded congregations. The Wesleyan Methodist Church was first proclaimed in Stand Creek by Captain Benny, father of Santiago Benny and granduncle of Simon Ventura. Now, these names are important because all these people were educators and were also very strong Methodist people. It is said at the time that Mr. Simon Ventura, at the time of the writing of this booklet, that Mr. Ventura was the only local preacher still alive, Garifuna local preacher in the Methodist Church, still alive at the time. These were, as I said, all Garifuna men who shared their tenacity in the education they received and sought to help their fellow man in the areas of education and preaching. This outlines the beginning of the Garifuna leaders and their work in both the Roman Catholic and the Methodist churches. In later life, I can mention countless others in the Garifuna community today, who today, as I said, have advanced themselves in the fields of education and religion. I single out Canon Jerris Valentine of the Anglican Church, who is one of Belize's foremost anthropologists on the Garifuna culture and folk religion. Bishop O.P. Martin became, as you would have heard, became the first Garifuna Roman Catholic bishop, followed later by one who is amongst us this evening, and my good friend and colleague. We share a very close relationship. I must say, Bishop Lawrence Nicasio. Can we give him a round of applause? And while I'm making this presentation tonight, I must add, I did invite Bishop Philip Wright. We share a very close bond, the three bishops. We share a very close bond, especially in our working relationship, and especially in the area of education. That is on the side. I must say that there have been countless other Roman Catholic priests who have followed subsequently. The Methodist Church followed suit in electing its first Methodist Garifuna bishop in the person of Bishop A. Moses Bengoshe. The Methodist Church in Belize also have Garifuna ministers serving in its rank. One Methodist minister, the Reverend George R. Castillo, migrated to the United States of America in the 1950s and wrote a book entitled My Life Between the Cross and the Bars. He wrote on the struggle of being a Black Garifuna in the United States of America. Before his migration, he struggled as a Garifuna young man growing up in Stank Creek after the death of his father, Philip Castillo. And I quote from his book, at the death of his father and at his funeral, he says, the funeral is vague in my memory, but I recall a loud crying and my younger siblings and I being passed over the casket. And being passed over the casket is a very important tradition in the Garifuna culture. You pass the young child 3 times over the casket. And Canon Jerris Valentine, who has done a lot of research in this area, reminded me that it speaks of keeping the spirits away from the child. And there are certain words that are said if the child is a male child, as the child is being passed over the casket. There are some words that are said in expression to the male child that the spirit may stay away from the male child. And if it was a female child, the same was done for her, that the spirits would stay away from her. This was what Reverend Castillo remembered and recollected as a young man. I want to share a little bit on the veneration of saints. And it is important that I share on this aspect because perhaps it will help us to better appreciate why the Garifuna population does engage in some things within its tradition. And I draw from the West African way of life from the time that they lived around the port of Benin in 1675. The historical findings suggested that it was somewhere along this line that the Black Garifuna population started or came out of. The religious life of the African tradition from which Garifuna originated is significant because of some of the things that they did in Africa at the time. And I draw from some writings of some of the African theologians that there's a tribe in West Africa, the Talensi, who venerate the saints. These are those who, from a theological discourse on the communion of saints, point to some African traditions. And there are three things that we must note as we look at the veneration of saints among the Garifuna population of Belize. To venerate your ancestors is not out of fear, not out of ignorance or superstition, but because ancestry and parenthood is critical to social upbringing. And this is understood in the African culture. Father and son relation is especially important. And the chief filial obligation of the male son is important, especially when it comes to him burying one of his parents. And I alluded, for example, to some of the Garifuna tradition today, when the male child is passed over the casket, and to fail in the carrying out of these responsibilities is to incur the wrath of the ancestors. The ancestors are guardians and custodians of the moral values. Kinship is the binding force, and the relationship between parents and devoted child is dependent on a very close bond and ought not to be violated. And there are some accountability within the Talnense tradition that they believe that the ancestors have control even over the power of death. Now, there is where we have to be careful, because I hasten to say that within the Garifuna Christian tradition, it is God who has control over life and death, not the ancestors. And it is important to point that out. And I will also point out that though the Garifuna practice veneration of the saints, we interact with the visible through the forms of our ancestors. Now, this doesn't go well with some Christian theologians. And that is the reason why the whole aspect of superstition comes in. But just as I said, to point out that within the Garifuna population and as we practice today in our culture, it is God who we worship and not our ancestors. And I need to point that out. It is God who we worship within the Christian population of the Garifuna. and not our ancestors. I want to quickly point to the basis for Christian faith and worship as it occurs today. And there are some things that I will have to pass over, and you will understand and appreciate that. I would have liked it to flow, but I'm, as I said, in the interest of time, I just want to quickly pass over a few things, and I would have said enough about the veneration of saints. But just to understand and to appreciate, as I said, that there's a distinction between what we call ancestral worship and the veneration of saints. Mind you, in parts of Africa, there is what you call ancestral worship, their belief in the worship of their ancestors. But within the Belizean Christian Garifuna population, I would have liked if we more stress the word, the veneration of saints, meaning appreciation of the ancestors and appreciation of those who have died. As I did last week with my family as we gathered for our family get-together. Was it last week, Rose? Where we were appreciative of those who had died, and we called their names, but they're not the people we worship. And there is a distinction. It is important then to, as I close this part of aspect of veneration, to point to perhaps the Apostles' Creed, where it talks about we believe in God the Father Almighty, and speaks also to the saints. The Sanctorum Communio. We are at one with them. We are at one even with those who have died. We still hold them near and dear to our hearts. And thus the importance of calling your names, even in the time of celebration. Perhaps it is important for me to just quickly deal with that aspect of the church as it has to do with music. Now, if you would have noticed, for those of us who like to dance punta, or the other forms of the Garifuna dance, and share in their music, the impact of music has always been a part of that which the Garifuna practice. My nephew, not nephew, but grandnephew, my grandnephew is here tonight, and they were playing the drums before, Kalai. And his friend with him, look at the texture of his skin. He's not Garifuna, as far as I know. But he plays the drum better than myself or Bishop Lawrence Nicasio. And so it is understood that the Garifuna, we must continue to promote our culture even through music. Can I get an applause? That it is important to continue to, I do not want to use the word sell, but to promote the word to promote our culture, and especially through our music. There are those countries like Jamaica and other countries who have done well in selling reggae. In Trinidad and Tobago, Calypso, they have done well. Why can't the Garifuna population in Belize promote its music? Whether in the church, the hymns we sing, which I think we should do more of, and people like myself and Bishop Lawrence Nicasio should be doing more in promoting the singing of our hymns in Garifuna. But not only that, it is important that we also share our culture. I am a bit wary, I must caution, of, I spoke to the issue of good promoting of music, even in worship. But I caution also that I notice that the music seems to be going in another direction. And I'm a little bit concerned as one of the leaders in the Garifuna population. I hear some Punta only defacing and speaking to the parts of a woman, which I don't think is right, because within the Garifuna population, we treat our women with utmost respect. And I think this is something, Bishop Nicasio and Mr. Caetano, that we will have to look at as we go forward and as we promote our music. This is something that must be understood, that perhaps we need to skew in the direction of what Pen Caetano used to do during the 1990s. And the music that that culture group first came out with, the type of Punta Rock that they came out with was pure enough to sing even in church. And as the mistress of ceremonies say tonight, that even when you sing the national anthem, you have to dance. That's a part of our culture. And that ought to be promoted. That ought to be understood. I want to perhaps begin to conclude by just skimming over the church and economics in the Garifuna culture. Too long, the church perhaps has seen the Garifuna population as only taken from them and not given as it should. And so when one goes for mass or service, it is a fee. Memorials, funerals, weddings, and baptisms. But I think the church will have to look closer at also how it can be the sociological organization that it is called upon to be. How can it give some more insofar as the Garifuna population is concerned? Dr. Joseph Palacio, in his book, Development in Belize, noted that throughout Belize and other parts of the Atlantic, there are villages which are, there are Garifuna villages which are being depopulated because of economics. I think of saying right today that I'm very concerned, and Mr. Caetano and myself had a discussion where we're hearing that there might be a renaming of the village. And I want to caution against that. And it will be aligned to Placencia. And so what becomes of the Garinagu culture is the question that we must ask in Belize. And after St. Bite, what is the next village? Georgetown, Hopkins, Barranco? And we have to ask ourselves these searching questions and perhaps ask those who are in authority to take a closer look at what is taking place. And the church must not be afraid to speak out about these things. And so I applaud Dr. Joseph Palacio for his findings, but we have to go further. In some of these villages, the abysmal underdevelopment is atrocious. And perhaps we need to look again. In my travels in Honduras, it is no different. Trujillo and in Rotan, Punta Gorda, these are fishing villages, but the Garifuna population, they're selling out their lands. And we were blessed when we first came to these shores. We were blessed with the seashore. And now we're selling it out for tourism purposes. When we, as a population, could have been benefiting from tourism. But instead, we have thrown up our hands and we are giving up our villages and our communities, and we are depopulating these communities. I want to conclude by also speaking to the source of perhaps offering just one solution. There are those in our diaspora, Garifunas, who have migrated. And I believe that they are a part of the answer to what is happening in Belize. And what must also happen in the church as the church responds to the Garifuna population. We look to the remittances that they send and the other things, the donations that they themselves can send. I want to speak to them that I'm online in this forum and perhaps challenge them. I conclude by going to where I started, that the veneration of the saints must not be viewed with suspicion, but with a level of authenticity, with a level of respect, with a level of pride. And the Garifuna child must not be ashamed to call herself Garifuna. The Garifuna boy must be able to play the drum as Kali is playing the drum this evening, tonight. The little girl must not be afraid to talk her language. And I applaud the spotted areas where I see encouragement in teaching of the drums, the playing of the drums, the learning of the language. And I will have to go to some classes myself. But this is good. I want to express thanks. And I hope that what I've presented tonight will not only be a presentation here, not only be a presentation for tonight, but it is one that, again, Madam, continuing the research, hopefully by November, to develop into a book. I want to thank you, and God bless us. Seremi.
And just like that, we have come to the end of our lecture for tonight. I don't believe we have any questions pending. within Zoom, within the chat. But before we close completely, we need to give the thank you, and that will be done by Mrs. Eleanor Gillett.
Good night. On behalf of the University of the West Indies Open Campus staff, Niche, Wesley College, and Wesley Junior College, I would like to thank all those who made this public lecture series possible. First of all, God is the center of everything that we do. I would like to thank him for his guidance and presence throughout the preparation of this event. He is our foundation and light. Thank you to Bishop Lawrence Nicasio for those encouraging words of hope and faith. Also, thanks to Dr. Charmaine Saunders, head of UWI Open Campus, Belize, for delivering the opening remarks and spearheading the UWI Public Lecture Series. Thanks also to Ms. Sapna Budrani, President of Niche, and Mr. Sebastian Caetano for their welcoming remarks on the Garifuna culture in Belize. To Mrs. Agnes Morris, the sister of the presenter, who is always supportive of her brother. Thank you for the warm introduction. Special thanks to our presenter, Senator Bishop A. Moses Bengoshe, a proud Garifuna, who loves his culture and people, and is always willing to share valuable information as it relates to the topic, Garifuna culture and its implications on the church in Belize. I am sure that the information shared tonight was well received and allow us to better understand the role of the Garifuna culture plays in the Christianity community. Thank you to the technicians from Love FM, the UWI Open Campus, Belize, and Avant-Garde for setting up the live stream and simulcasting. Had it not been for their dedication and time, this lecture would not have been simulcasted and streamed to you in the comfort of your homes. Thanks also to Ms. Sapna Budrani for the collaboration of the use of the House of Culture for this event. And let me say, the ambience is wonderful because of Mr. Raul Villanueva talent in making a space come alive. We also would like to thank our lovely and energetic drummers. I am not a Garifuna, but I love Garifuna music. If it wasn't a lecture, I would be showing you a thing or two down there. But let's continue. Lastly, we cannot forget our program director, Ms. Ranisha Gentle, president of UWI Open Campus Student Guild, who led us through the lecture and kept the program on schedule. We surely appreciate it. Thank you. And before we close up, I would like to call Mrs. Cleland and Dr. Charmaine Sanders for her to present a token of our appreciation for hosting this lecture tonight.
We'd also like to present a certificate of appreciation to Senator Bishop A. Moses Bengoshe for delivering this public lecture series and for agreeing to be our lecturer for this series tonight. Thank you.
And with that, we have come to the end of our program. Once again, a huge thank you to Senator Bishop Bengoche for his outspoken words on the Garifuna culture and its implication on the church here in Belize. Once again, that was the basis of tonight's public lecture, simulcasted on Love Television and streaming for our regional and worldwide colleagues and network. Now, with that, before we leave, I am once again Ms. Ronisha Gentle, your directress for tonight's event. And for everyone who tuned in, thank you for watching. And until next time for the next public lecture, stay safe and thank you for joining us. Everyone, just a quick note, we have some takeaway snacks at the back for you to pick up on your way out. Thank you. Oh, cassava bread too.
The mic is off.